Joining me now to talk about this is IATA's CEO, Giovanni Bisignani, and he joins us live from Geneva. Mr. Bisignani, thank you so much for joining us. It's a little bit of a mixed picture because you've revised up the forecasts for both 2010 and 2011, and yet actually profits in 2011 are forecast to be lower. So let's start with those lower profits and look at why they would be lower in 2011.
You know, we are forecasting a $9.1 billion of profit next year. The reason? First thing, that the passenger will increase by roughly 5%, and the yields will be practically flat. The cargo was also increased, but not enough to handle the capacity. We're planning to have 1,400 new planes, so the total traffic will be 5%, the total capacity 6%, the yields are practically flat. And after this, in order, we will have an oil at $84 per barrel. That means our fuel bill will be roughly $156 billion. The GDP is 2.6. And these are the three main reasons why we see a forecast that will be a bit less impressive than the forecast that we achieved at profit of this year.
So what needs to happen to stop these margins being so pathetic, as you call them, and indeed the recovery being so tenuous? I think you describe it as being balanced on a knife edge.
You know, what has been impressive of this year has been the speed and the recovery of the revenues, because we recovered $80 billion revenues from last year. So it was really impressive. Just to give you an example, after September 11, we had a drop in revenues of $20 billion, and it took us 4 times to recover. This year we recovered $83 billion in 1 year. The overall situation, the situation of the industry, we are too fragmented. It's very difficult for us to consolidate. We have over 1,000 airlines. And at the same time, I would say the GDP is quite weak in certain parts of the world, as, for example, in Europe. And that's why Europe is the weakest part of the system.
You say there's over 1,000 airlines. That to you is just too many. Do they need to consolidate? What would be the number that you would be looking for that would be optimal?
But, you know, 1,000 airlines, there's 230 airlines in the IATA system that we represent 93% of the total traffic. So there's enormous opportunity to see consolidation. We've seen some great success stories recently. KLM with Air France, Lufthansa, the future with BA and Iberia. So there's much more to be done. But, you know, this is very difficult because in order to start having some transnational consolidation between Europe and Asia, or Europe and the United States, we have to change the rules of the game, because this transnational, transregional consolidation is not allowed by the system that is ruling the airline. It was decided 60 years ago in the Chicago Convention.
And that needs to change, in your opinion?
That needs to change. We have to be able to fly where the market is, and not having the need for an international treaty between governments to allow us to fly. We don't need to have a cap on the capital. There's 21 or 49% in the ownership. These are old rules that have no more sense with the century in which we are living now.
Now, the margins, you talked a little bit about this two-speed recovery. Europe, as we know, is the weakest area. The margins in North America and Asia are pretty high. Are they sustainable? What are the risks that you see there? But,
you know, I think that in the U.S., the positive result, because U.S. North America has a profit this year of 5.1%, is a number second after Asia Pacific. They realized more earlier than the others that the credit crunch could affect the industry, and they cut capacity in very quickly. 2008, they started to reduce capacity, and that brought the yields higher.
Now, let's talk about taxation in Europe, because as countries are trying to tax their deficits, you can see that a tax on airlines seems to be an appealing option. But what are the effects that it has on the industry?
It's a disaster, because, you know, in those last 9 months, we've seen massive taxation in the UK, in Germany, with $1 billion euros tax in Austria. This is killing this industry. It's adding 3-4% to the ticket, and at the end is also affecting the country as a whole. We had the same case a year ago, 2 years ago, with the Dutch. They implemented a tax of 300 million euros. We explained to the government that will affect the industry and the economy, and they saw that this was right. It was affecting the economy of over 1 billion, and after 6 months the Dutch government was quite quicker in taking away this tax.